I haven't done a book review in a really long time, just because I had a baby and that's my excuse. Yes, it's a good one. It's a convenient one. But there are certain books that I've wanted to review for a while. The one I'm going to do today, this looks backwards, but anyways, it's by Atul Gawande and it is called Being Mortal. I feel like everybody has a book that, like, you read, if you're a book reader, if you read books, you like, blah, can I use my words today? If you read a lot of books like I do, I mean, there are certain books that are entertaining and they're quick reads. And then there are books that are like really, they just resonate with you and they just affect you. And this is one of them. And so I think this book resonated with me a lot because I am a nurse and I've worked in the ICU and I've dealt with a lot of death. And in this book, he's a surgeon and he's talking about our being like American views when it comes to the conversation of death. And it's a very easy read, and sorry, I was listening to see if my daughter was waking up. Anyways, it's a very easy read, and he tackles this issue that a lot of people don't like to talk about. And not only our views about death, but our expectations about death. And he gives an everyday example of, death is inevitable. It's going to happen to all of us. But we do things like, you're supposed to do these things anyways, but you take care of yourself, you exercise. If you're older, if you're part of the older population, you're on lots of medications, blood pressure medications, diabetic medications, whatever that may be. And really those things, yes, they're there to lower your blood pressure and to control your diabetes, but ultimately they are things to keep you healthy and keep you alive as long as possible. I mean, they're not, everybody knows that like blood pressure medicines and diet and things like insulin are not, they're not the cure all for for diabetes or high blood pressure, but they do help in minimizing your risk for like a heart attack or a stroke. Anyways, my point is he's making the point that we try to do things to maximize how long that we stay on this planet, like blood pressure medications, insulin medications. Those are like not, I don't want to say not normal, because I mean, you take them and they are there for a good purpose. But basically he's saying you're prolonging the inevitable. Everybody, you're so accustomed and taking medications is so ingrained in our daily lives to keep us alive, that we don't think about like really what it's trying to prevent us from doing, which is from dying, but that's inevitable. So he kind of talks about that. He talks about your expectations. Unfortunately, like when people, like if you're in the ICU, if you become really, really sick, I think the expectation is that people are going to make, some people do, but not the case for everybody. Somebody makes this miraculous recovery and then they come out of the ICU and they're totally fine. But one of the big conversations that they have, like, is code status. So if you don't know what that is, this is basically where you and the doctor decide if something is, if something's okay, like if your heart stops or you stop breathing, like what do you want to happen? Do you just simply, do you want them, it's not simply, let me not say that because that sounds kind of dismissive. Do you want the doctors to do everything to save your life? Or do you want to just let nature take its course? And so that's, even with that, people don't like to have that conversation because it makes them kind of face a very real reality. It's like, I think a lot of people, and I've seen it so many times where it's almost like out of sight, out of mind. If I don't see it, I don't have to deal with it, which is not good because, as I've said it before, like I've seen a lot, I've been in the ICU and I've had patients, that have had things done to them that they did not want done, but they're unable to verbalize that now because they're unconscious and they're they're heavily sedated. So yeah, it talks about what it's trying to, I guess, bring up the conversation of people's expectations for their health down the line, and not, I guess, in doing this, making it not so scary, because I know it's not a fun thing to talk about death. No one does that in their everyday lives, but at the same time, it is a conversation that needs to be had, because I've seen it so many times in the ICU where it just things, and you know, being in the ICU is not, it's not awesome. I mean, it's, and people have things that are done to them that are very unpleasant. I mean, procedures, things like having a tube down your throat. I mean, we keep those patients sedated for a reason, because it's highly uncomfortable. And these things are just uncomfortable and painful, but depending on what you want done, that needs to happen. But you also, if you don't want that done, they also need to know that as well. So, I don't know. I just feel like this is and his style of writing, I feel like, is very, I don't know, maybe because I am in the medical field, and I felt like because I've experienced some of the things he's talking about, maybe it's easier for me to read, because I understand. I mean, he's not speaking in medical talk. Like, I don't want it to seem like that, but I just feel like it's easier for me, I guess, to understand, because I know exactly what he's talking about. I've seen what happens when people don't talk about death. I've seen when families don't want to talk about what's going to happen, what's a very serious reality for their family members, for their loved ones. So I really recommend, you do not have to be in the medical field to appreciate this book. I think it talks a lot about, you know, themes that everyone can relate to, which is your expectations for when you get older, your expectations for your own health, and not just like your everyday going to the doctor. Like, you need to have a conversation about your code status, because unfortunately, I think a lot of people in the ICU, if they don't have those conversations and their family members aren't familiar with what their wishes are, a lot of things end up happening to them that I know that they did not want to happen to them. So I highly recommend the book. It's an easy read, and I just feel like it's a conversation as a society we really do need to talk about. So that's my review. I hope someone reads it, because I cannot talk about it. This is probably one of my favorite books, because it just really resonates with me, and I would just love to have a conversation with someone about it who's actually read it. So, all right, have a good day.